one of the key problems in marriage, apart from finance, from studies carried out, is actually sex.
Yeah.
And it's not because the two partners most of the time are not compatible. It's just because the two partners have the wrong idea of what their expectations is all about.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, Anya Fombad, and I spark the hard conversations that challenge questionable cultural and societal norms that threaten the well-being of the African community. And I also share stories about growing up as Africans in Africa and in the diaspora. I strongly believe that normalizing open discussions and sharing experiences, whether good or bad, will not only make you find your voice, but will broaden your sense of purpose and empower others to do the same. So if you have ever tried challenging certain African cultural and societal doctrines, or if you have ever felt like it is about time that we confronted these issues in our African community and do better as a people, or even if you have always been interested in learning about the experiences of other Africans growing up in Africa and the diaspora, then you are in the right place. Welcome to Living African.
Welcome to another episode of Living African. Today we will be having a conversation which is rated. So this is when we advise anybody under the age of 18 to stop listening and skip this episode. Now, based on multiple studies, the lack of sexual satisfaction is one of the most common issues that affect the health and longevity of marriages. So I have here with me today Mrs. Lola Bade-Aluko to talk about sex in marriage and defy certain sexual ideologies that have been made a taboo in our African community, which should otherwise be very instrumental in spicing up intimacy and improving sexual satisfaction in marriage. Mrs. Lola, also known as Lawler, is a proudly Nigerian clinical psychologist and sexologist currently based in South Africa. Lawler is aware of many hats and has taken on several great opportunities in her lifetime. She is a talk practitioner, a host at various radio talk programs in Nigeria, England, and Swaziland, and runs a psychological unit called Shoulders and a reach-out unit called Real Issues with Lawler, where she volunteers, hosts talk shows, and does counseling. She does all this also while working as the executive director of a technology firm. Hi Lola, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much for coming here again. Now, the last time we spoke on this show as well, it was about the importance of sexual education. And one thing that we realized was that the lack of sex education at a young age typically has a negative impact on sexual performance and satisfaction as an adult, especially in marriage. So today, our focus would definitely be sex satisfaction in marriage and not out of marriage. So how will you define a healthy sex life in marriage?
Okay, thanks so much, and thanks for having me once again. It's always a pleasure to be in my own zone. I will call this my zone,
right,
because it's something I'm very passionate about. It's something that has been, like you rightly said, it's been a taboo for many Africans, especially we from the Western African region.
Yes.
It's something we don't talk about, and especially in marriage, you see so many things go wrong, and like you rightly said, one of the key problems in marriage, apart from finance, from studies carried out, is actually sex.
Yeah.
And it's not because the two partners most of the time are not compatible. It's just because the two partners have the wrong idea of what their expectations is all about.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
And talking about sex in marriage, I would use my own years of experience, my researches, things I've read, things I've seen, and how it's going about. So we're going to actually have to start from the beginning. And luckily, we've done the first episode about, sexual education and everything. And it actually starts, for me, it starts from there. Because you see, when you don't have a good sexual orientation, it's like a chain. It just links to each other. Yeah. And that's why I always say to people that, you see, one of the things we need to understand is until we can demystify sex itself, there would not be a very good headway. And when I say demystify sex, let's look at marriages of many people, right? Marriage and sex, sex in marriage is some things for some people is like a taboo. They don't even talk about it.
Right.
It's not to be talked about. It's to be acted.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's look at it from two sides of view. A man, maybe in the sexual act, is actually hurting the woman. She can't talk about it because she's been brought up not to talk about it.
Right.
Well, so what does she do? She reacts to it. So whenever he wants to have sex with her, she says, "Oh no, she's not in the mood." She's not in the mood. She can't even tell him, "Oh, you know what? I'm hurting down there."
Right.
You understand? Because she's not been brought up to talk about such things. You understand? Mm-hmm. And then again, maybe she's not even enjoying it the way she's supposed to enjoy it. And she knows that if she tells him, a typical African man will be like, "Oh, how did you know you were supposed to enjoy it this way? Have you been sleeping with other men?"
Right. That's true.
So the conversation is going to go south.
Yeah.
And so what do some women like that do? They actually keep quiet.
That's
and
true.
Then and just go along with it. And after a while, we're all humans. They get a little bit turned off, but it becomes more like a chore. Mm-hmm. It needs to be done. Right. Let me just lie there. I mean, you see people say things like, some women do not have to moan while having sex. People react differently to situations. It's an emotional state. So how you would react to some people while crying, for example, will shout while crying. Mm-hmm. Some people while crying will be quiet. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that they don't both feel the pain of what's going on. So people express enjoyment in different forms. So right. with sex in marriage, I have realized over time, and that one of the most important things is because many people have gone into it uneducated, uninformed. So they don't even know what to expect. I mean, we're going to take it in steps, okay? Right. Now, I'm going to break it down into 3 steps for you. And I'm going to look at the introduction of us going into marriage, right, while in the marriage, and, the journey continues. Now, as a young African girl, I'm going to be very explicit when I'm talking now. Mm-hmm. As a young African girl, many of us were brought up not to be expressive. Yeah. Sex wasn't something you talked about. I mean, I remember you watching TV. If there was a kissing scene, you would leave. Yeah. They didn't have to tell you. You just left. Yeah. Because and now looking back and being much older, I used to ask myself, why were we even living, Because, I mean, if we knew that those 2 people were acting, it was just the job they were doing. But it was just something we thought, we already identified kissing as being bad.
As bad, yeah.
It was going to lead to sex. Mm-hmm. So we programmed in our head that sex is bad, which is not right. I mean, sex is an act to be enjoyed. Yeah. It's not only for procreation. I mean, procreation is, no, it's to be enjoyed. And sometimes I always say to people that, okay, because of my wildly traveled, I've been to the Red District in Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that intrigued me about it then was, this is sex workers. Mm-hmm. This is what they do for a job. Right. Is it that every time they go in there, they enjoy it? No. It's a job. It needs to be done. So you do what you need to do, you get out, I get paid. But in marriage, is sex supposed to be like that? No. Yeah. It's supposed to be something enjoyed by 2 people. Right. But our African society has made the woman the underdog, unfortunately. A woman that is expressive starts being seen as wayward, wild, bad, just everything you can think of.
Mm-hmm. Or promiscuous, actually.
Exactly. And do you know that sometimes some men don't even know what to do sexually?
Oh, yeah. Most times.
But because of the way society has put on them, they can't even talk about it. Yeah. You understand? They can't even talk about it. So now let's go back. I'm going to go back to the introduction part. In Africa, many parents don't even educate their female children or even the male children about no sexual orientation at all.
Yeah.
So it's like when you get married, I say it's always a crash course. It's always a crash course of trial and error.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Sometimes it's the bang, 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 and you get it right. And sometimes, it does become, it depends on what you think is enjoyment for you.
Yeah.
You understand? Some men believe that, okay, I'm a man. I need to bang this lady till her head is hitting the ceiling. It has proven I've done something. And unfortunately for you, she just might not even be enjoying the nonsense that you just did. And that is you standing and panting and as if you like an elephant.
Right.
And you think you've done a job.
Right.
So, but if parents have been able to like educate like young adults that, look, this is what is an expectation. It varies from people, and I'll be very honest with you. What you will get as your sexual satisfaction may not be what I will get.
Yeah.
That's being very honest.
Right.
And what you want may not be what I want.
Yeah.
You understand? And I always say to people that most of the times we make a mistake. We only look at it from the female point of view. The men too have expectations.
Yeah, that's true.
They need to know what will get them aroused. And from the female point of view, many a times we don't even know what the act of seduction is. Some women think, I would be very honest with myself to say, I was a victim of that too until I grew much older and I knew that, okay, no, there is, I would always say to people that the seduction is an act. You need to understand it. You need to be there. You need to know. It's not because you're a woman and then your breast is jumping up and down and everything and then the man has to get aroused. No.
Right.
There is a way. There's a way a man is not like a torchlight on and off.
Yeah.
No. You understand? And that is one of other things I would love to talk about, because when after a while in marriage, like you rightly said, it gets to a time it becomes a little bit monotonous. But again, it doesn't have to. You can always put a lot of spice into things, and that is where I always say to people, that is where the woman comes in play. But in African marriage, I've noticed that the women,
right,
but things are changing now from the people I talk to. The women do not do a lot. It's like you just sit back and expect the man to do so many. And that is why sometimes, especially Africans, you see that in marriage, the man always tend to go out for these younger girls. And then the wife at home is always saying, oh, what is it that she has that I don't have?
Right.
Okay. Well, girl, a lot of things you're not doing. You're just sitting down there like a fat ass, not doing anything, you understand?
Right.
I'm not talking of the bad. The men that are going to be bad are going to be bad no matter what. But what am I trying to say? In marriage, we get, when we get into marriage, most women and men, we lose ourselves in marriage. Yes, marriage can be quite daunting. I would agree with you, because there's just a lot of things to think about.
Yeah.
But one of the most important thing, which is just between the husband and wife, that is the only thing that's just between both of you. And I always say that is where you put in more effort to make it a little bit more interesting. If with age, as every age progresses, things change. And then in the African society, for example, people don't believe in AIDS.
Yeah.
I'm talking of the bullet, the rubber duck. It depends on the kind of mindset the man has. Because the first thing the man thinks about is, oh, so I'm not satisfying you.
Right.
Why do you need a vibrator?
Yeah.
Why do you need this?
Yeah.
Why do you need that? But again, it depends on the woman to be able to, both of you need to be on the same wavelength. You need to be able to explain to them in a subtle way. It's like adding spice to what is it. But if unfortunately you are married to a very traditional man that doesn't believe in that, what will I advise? I would say, then don't bring it in. Yeah, because it is going to cause a problem. He's never going to accept it. You're going to have to work towards him accepting what it's all about. You know, it's not like you coming into your bedroom and you find a stranger on your bed. Right. You're not going to like it. Mm-hmm. But if it had been discussed over time, and both of you are like, you know, getting the hang of it, okay, oh, this is what he does. You know, both have to have interest in what he does, and, you know, being able to explain that, oh, you know what, oh, this is how it worked, and then, you know, because everybody goes straight. So in marriage, one of the things I notice is that, which is something funny to me, both partners at times sexually take themselves for granted. And that is one of the biggest problems that we have. We unknowingly take ourselves for granted. Let me start with the woman. Right. It's obvious that, okay, before the baby comes, there's more time on your hands, there's things to do, you know, there's everything. But once the baby starts coming, subconsciously we become a little bit more aware of our body change. Even if we don't talk about it, we become more aware of it. You know, you become more conscious of the fact that, oh, now your tummy is a little bit bigger. You know, you're not as firm as you used to be down there, you know, and it kind of affects the sexual reaction subconsciously without even you knowing. Right. You understand? Some women, even after giving birth, I've found out, can become a little bit rigid. Out of fear of, you know, I'm not what I used to be down there anymore. Right. You understand? And I've heard stories, I don't know how far it is true, that is why some women would opt for cesarean section because they don't want to get really, you know, wide down there. Is that true? I can't say, but everybody owns their own stories. Right. Now, with the men, I think with men, when it comes to the sexual thing, they have expectations of what, like I always say to people, a man wants a woman that looks like a nun. No, a woman that behaves like a nun, in bed behaves like a prostitute. Yeah, you know, they want a woman in bed that behaves like a prostitute, but at the same time, they want a good lady. So, you know, they want a lot of persona imbibed in one person. So what does a woman have to do? You need to understand, this is what my man wants. Right. You need to move away from the mindset of where you're coming from. You hear people tell you things like, I'm a Christian, I can't give a blowjob.
Right. We're definitely going to talk about that later.
And it's always, to me, is the most intriguing and funny reaction I've ever seen, because I always ask myself, I'm a Christian too. Does it really matter? Does it? Because I've tried, I'm going to be honest with you, I've tried to look at it from all forms. You understand? And I've even tried to look at it from the biblical point of view. And I don't see anywhere where it says it's a sin. Yeah. I've looked at it, I've not seen anywhere where it says it's a sin. So in marriage, one of the biggest problems I have seen over time is the fact that the sexual life starts to kind of dwindle. But both parties, because they've kind of subconsciously taken themselves for granted, nobody's making an effort to, put it back to where it used to be. What would I say used to work for me? And I still do it till today, is that I don't look at my marriage as a marriage. I look at my marriage as a relationship.
Relationship, yeah.
Yes. And why do I do that? It keeps me on my toes. It keeps me on my toes because, you see, when you are in a relationship, I know you're married. Think back of when you were boyfriend, girlfriend. Yeah. You would always want to be at your best when your boyfriend is coming. Yeah, that's true. Even if you're not taking a shower for 60 days, you quickly look for the best perfumes to put on. Yeah. But hey, the moment you get married, what do? Straight from the kitchen.
Right, that's true.
Like, oh God. You understand? So those are the kind of little things that affect sexual relationships in marriage. So what's your next question?
Yeah, you really said a lot. And I mean, I'm going to respond to a lot of things that you said, but starting with, you looking at your marriage as a relationship, I feel like since knowing you and talking to you, that's one thing that I have noticed about you. Like, you don't play when it comes to your man. Like, even when I'm trying to call you or you're like, nope, this is a do not disturb time. I have to spend time with my husband, I mean, and that's one thing I really admire about you because, I mean, even though you're not accessible at that time, unfortunately, but it makes me really admire the way you adore and prioritize your marriage, and it's something that, I'm silently learning as well, because there's sometimes when, you find yourself in a compromising position where you have to, hey, I mean, I know it's time for my man, but let me just, but you don't compromise on that. And I just want to commend you for that, because I mean, you've been married, I believe you've been married for like 20 something years now, right? 30 years, you see? Yeah, so you've been married for that long, but, you still try to make sure that you keep things intact, especially when it has to do with personal time and intimate time and stuff like that, which, I mean, a lot of us hope to achieve that when we're your age. So I want to commend you on that. Now, a few things that you spoke about, which I feel like, we should really highlight because they're actually very, very silent but loud issues in our community. Now, when you spoke about when women try to spice things up or try new things or initiate things, and the men, they're like, oh, are you sleeping with another man or stuff like that? I can personally attest to that because I remember several years ago, about 10 years ago or something, and this is a weird incident that really stuck to me. The hair salons, especially the African hair salons, that's where like all the gossip happens, So I was doing my hair in this salon, and this other lady who was a church lady, they were just talking about intimacy in marriage and stuff. And she had the same complaint. She was talking about, how she wanted to initiate and do something really special for her husband in the bedroom. And he was like, where did you learn that from? Like, I feel like, and he just shut her out, so I just feel like there's this aspect of intimidation within our African men, which is is disguised as aggression, so it's like there's this male chauvinism that, it's always the man who has to command anything that has to change, or a woman has no right to initiate or spice things up for the most part, So it's like when a woman wants to do that, I feel like based on the conversation we had back then, I felt like he was intimidated. So he used that as, he covered that intimidation with aggression and just shut her out. Mm-hmm. Like and it made her feel bad. Like, am I that bad? Like I'm just trying to spice things up. And so I feel like that's one of the things that we really need to be mindful of, especially how we react towards new things that are being introduced, especially when we're in our intimate moments, because in those moments of intimacy, that's when we're most vulnerable, right? And sometimes you don't want to open up too much, or you don't want to be embarrassed at your most vulnerable time. So you cover that up with some kind of aggression or just dismissal. Now, another thing, which is such a big thing from what you have said, that's one of the big lessons that I have actually got from everything you have said, is that especially in marriages, and I have experienced that sometimes in my own marriage, not necessarily in intimacy, but just in communication as a whole, we have silent expectations, in our marriages. So I expect this person to do this thing, and this person expects me to do this thing, but we never communicate that to each other. And I feel like communication is such a big thing in marriage, and especially in intimacy, because if you don't communicate what you want, for the most part, your partner will not know what you want, But then again, receiving that communication is another thing, right? Because I can communicate what I want from you, but then again, as a man, for example, the man could judge me like, who taught you that? Or why do you want that? Why do you want me to do that? And also we have to also understand each other's values, especially sexual values, and just be patient with one another. But that communication, I feel like that's the start of everything, because if we do not communicate clearly and accurately, a lot of things will go down. Like you said, women sometimes tell you they're not in the mood, but it's not because they're not really in the mood. They may be hurting, or they may just be, there's other factors to it. So if you don't communicate that, a man can literally take the wrong message and feel like, hey, she's not satisfying me and maybe I'll go get it outside. And vice versa. It happens to the women too, you know. So I really feel like those are a few of the things that I really got from what you said. And those are the points that I really wanted to highlight that we need to address and we need to change within our marriages and relationships in the African community. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that before we move on.
Yeah, before we move on, okay, I will just touch briefly on both things, the communication and the introduction of something new. Like I said to you, let's all be very honest with ourselves, okay? I always believe in the subtle way of doing things. And when I say subtle way of doing things, you can't not always have eaten banana. And then I want to give you oranges. And then all of a sudden I just take away the oranges and I just give you boom. I mean, I just take away the bananas and I give you orange, boom. Your first reaction as every human being on earth is you will be like, okay, you know, it's like a normal subconscious, okay, what is this? You're going to step back. But if I've been talking to you and saying, okay, you know what, it would be very nice for us to try oranges. You know, oranges are nice. I've been talking to you subtly about it. When I give it to you, anytime I give it to you, you'll be like,
let's see what it has.
But your reaction won't be total rejection. Surprise, because you see, you've been kind of prepared. You've been prepared. You are waiting it, but he doesn't know when it was going to come. So that's not the same thing with you spicing up your marital home. You understand? I mean, I would always say it would have been better for the person to have always discussed that. Oh, you know what? Oh, we know. You know, just introduce the subject once in a while. Like, oh, it would be nice for us to. Oh, it would be nice for us to do this. Oh, it would be nice for me to even just get the bed laid. You know, you are dropping the subjects in a very subtle way to the other party. So when he or she sees it, she's not totally taken out of surprise. Now, you see, in communication, I always feel you said the most important thing. And I always said, I was a victim of that too. A woman and a man, they sit and they expect you to be a magician and just get right into their head and you know what I want. For example, if you know you want your husband to touch you, you know, I mean, say sweet things to you, not just grab you like an ornament, put you up in the bed, put your two legs up and boom. No. You should, in a very subtle way, be able to say, oh, no, you know, that I would like this to be done to me. I would like, you know, you can, in a very subtle way. And then you can even ask him, oh, no, what do you like? And everything, not just keep quiet when it's not done. And especially in Africa, for example, like you rightly said, there's just this very, I will use the word silly assumption that people make a lot. And that is the assumption that if a man is not sleeping with his wife, or if the wife is not sleeping with the husband, they're getting it somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah.
No, I don't believe in that. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't believe in that at all. Because it doesn't have to be sex all the time.
Yeah.
There are other things for you to do together. I mean, what if you live separately? Which I have had a long distance relationship all my life. I mean, if I put the number of years I've lived under the same roof with my husband, I don't think it will, out of the 30 years, I don't think it will make up to 5 years. But I would say to myself, that is who my marriage is. And that's what has built my marriage. Because for me, every time my husband was going to come back home, you would have thought it was a real homecoming party, you know, the excitement and everything, you know. But again, did it make any one of us go astray? I will talk for myself. I would say no.
No, yeah.
You understand? I would say no. Yeah. Instead, it built up an excitement. So there are so many African ideologies and myths that people need to, like you said, put behind them. Some men believe, like you rightly said, a woman shouldn't initiate sex.
Yeah.
Why not? It's not written anyway. You understand? That's because men's mindset is still, how will I put it, in the dumpster. They need to wake up.
Right.
Seriously, they need to wake up and see that, look, things are changing. I'm not saying that the woman should always grab the man every second and every time. But if that is what it is, I mean, there's always an active partner in any relationship, the man might just be the dominant one that it needs to be, like I said, it needs to be pushed, it needs to be led on.
Yeah. Honestly, that's very true, because it's just the whole aspect of the male chauvinism, which is very common in the African community, that men always think that they're superior to the women. So it's like a woman initiating something like that could signify that the man is weak or something like that, you know?
But that is why they don't change. And that is why they're not, I'm sorry to use this word. It takes, for me, I always say to people that it takes an African man with a cosmopolitan kind of attitude to run a successful marriage. Yeah. Many marriages are just there for the name of, okay, you know what? I'm married.
Right.
You understand?
And maybe for children too.
Yes. And sexually, but again, when I say sexually, both partners are not being satisfied, it depends on your measurement of sex that you understand. Exactly. I mean, some women don't even know that they can reach an orgasm. Yeah. They don't even know that.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Some women don't even know that there's nothing wrong in another position of sexual act apart from the missionary ones. Mm-hmm. What do I call such women? Are they bad? No, but they don't know any better.
Right.
You understand? I mean, I've had a situation where somebody had come to me and she saw two people sitting and she said, oh no, they were in an uncompromising position. And I'm like, what makes it uncompromising? Because I didn't see any big deal in what she made. She made it seem as if they had committed adultery. And I was like, hold on. I don't see it that way. Again, is where we're coming from. Mm-hmm. Is our mindset.
Yeah.
Some people believe that, till you get married, you just need to hold hands. It's fine. If that's what works for both of you. Some people believe that, okay, but because of Christianity, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. I mean, like I said, it's fine if that's what works for both of you. But the moment you get married and both of you know that, look, I'm just pushing along, sexually we're not okay, it's high time you see a therapist who can walk you through what is going on. But do African men see sexual therapists?
Nope. Nope. It's such a task for sure. Yeah.
No, they will tell the woman to go. They'll tell you the woman, you go. And then when you go, and then they'll tell you what did they say. And then if you tell them and said, oh no, maybe my husband she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's not a man.
Oh my goodness.
She's not a man. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And then what do you say? You're back to square one.
Right.
So I always advise that it's always better for both couples, for the couple to understand that, look, we both have a problem. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, let us be honest, it might be a one-way problem. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be the male, it might be the female. Mm-hmm. But again, both of them need to come together and work and say, you know what, we need to sort out this thing, because for me, it's a lifelong thing. Right. I would use myself as an example. Whenever I think that, okay, there's something going wrong, I'm always open to be able to sit with my husband and say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable with this. Mm-hmm. Oh, I would love this to be done. And, we've reached that place where we can talk about it freely. Mm-hmm. You understand? I remember when we were going to get the first vibrator, and I was the prude then. I was like, oh, no. It's not nice. It's a sin. You can't do that. And my husband was like, wake up, girl. What's wrong with you? You're behaving like a bush woman. Right. And I remember I was very embarrassed for quite a while, And look at me. I was a sexologist then. I was very embarrassed for quite a while. And my husband was like, what is wrong with you? And we had to sit about it. And I would I say it's actually broadened my horizon. I'm going to be honest with you, because growing up, you've heard so many things about vibrators. You've heard so many things about the strip club. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of the days my husband said, okay, you know what? Let's have a little bit of an experiment. And I'm like, okay, what are we talking about? He says, today we're not going to be husband and wife. We're just going to be friends. And And I'm like, oh, yeah, that would be nice. He says, so you say what? I want to introduce you to something. I want you to see something. It's just over-exaggerated. I just want you to see what it works like. And I said, okay, fine, let's go. So he says we're going to a strip club. And I think I did the Hail Mary like 1 million times before we got there. No. I'm like, no, this is not right. You know, you're going to go to hell. This. In short, I thought. And I remember after, and I was like, oh, so that was all it's all about. He says yes. I'm like, oh, really?
Right.
It's not that bad.
Right.
But you see, again, what am I trying to say to you? Communication, exposure. Did I come out of the place thinking, oh, this is where it goes to every time? So when it's missing for like 5 hours, it's there. No. Instead, what did I come out with? I came out with a broadened horizon that, oh, really? Is this why men go to these places?
Right.
This is the reason. It's what they see. This is what they like.
Yeah.
For me, it was an education.
Right.
I added something to what I already knew. And it was like a sexual liberation for me.
Right.
That, oh, really? I can actually use this as a tool to enhance myself.
Right.
But I didn't look at it the other way.
Right.
And I remember discussing it with 1 or 2 friends. And I remember when I want to discuss it, and the moment I look, their attitude was going the other way, I just cut it off. I don't even go there. Right. But if I sit with somebody I can discuss it with, we discussed it freely. That oh no, this is vibrator is good. This one is not good. You know. But some people till now, at the age of 55, they can't even still talk about it. But I always say to people that by the time you look at those people's wardrobes, what is behind
the scenes. Yeah, I was just gonna say that most of these people, they act in public like they're uncomfortable, but when you go behind the scenes, they probably do even worse and even more dangerous things. Some of them are even sexual predators. They do even way more dangerous things than a simple vibrator. And you know, from experience with my podcast episodes, I definitely know that this is going to be one of those uncomfortable conversations that a lot of Africans will not really feel in their skin to listen to or even react or share. But I'm super excited to see the reactions from this, because this is definitely one of those uncomfortable conversations that we have to openly talk about and normalize. So
No, you are totally right. And you know why do people shy away from this? Like you rightly said, it's an African thing. Look, I said to people, let's take us as women. You are told from the age of, for me, I was told at the moment you start your period, as soon as you're looked at, you get pregnant. It was wrong. I could have, and I used to say to my mom, it could have affected me in a different way. You understand? I could have become a little bit taken aback and thinking, oh, sex was really bad. You understand? Then they tell you not to have a boyfriend.
Right.
They tell you not to talk to men. They tell you not to have sex. Then you get into the marriage. Then you are, God help you, you get married to an understanding man. Or, you understand? No, God help you get married to an understanding man. In my own case, I got married to somebody, like I always say to everybody, my husband and I are just like basically, sometimes we actually forget that we're husband and wife. We're like more of, two friends. There's nothing we can say to each other, you understand? But, there's no perfect marriage. Yeah. My marriage isn't perfect, you understand? We've had more of our downs than our ups, you understand? But what have we learned? We've learned to say, you know what, this is what it is. We're going to live with it. So Africans, generally, we box up things a lot.
That's true.
And then, when you get into marriage, you have no sexual experience at all. You understand? What you know about is just lying there like a log of wood. I remember a case, and it was so funny to me because the man said to the wife, "Make some noise. Don't just lie there like a log of wood." And the lady came to me. It was a lady. She came to me and she said to me, "He's a bad person." I'm like, okay. He said he must be sleeping with prostitutes. I'm like, why? He says he wants her to be going, forget my, like I said, this is me. Yeah. She says she wants me to be doing, I'm like, are you enjoying it? She said yes. I said, okay, now, if you're taking a very nice, I like Coca-Cola. If you're taking a nice bottle of Coca-Cola, especially when it's towards the end, how do you behave? She goes, I'm like, so when you're enjoying something, why don't you just make an expression? She says, oh no, no, auntie, sex is supposed to be extremely quiet. I'm like, oh, who said so? I mean, you're married to him, she said yes. Obviously, your neighbors know you must be having sex. Because if you're not having sex, there is a problem. She said yes. I said, then who is it? She said, oh no, that's the way she was. But that is what the husband wanted. So I said to her, okay, no, what you're going to learn. Just learn how to do those things. I mean, because the complaints were just very simple complaints. The husband complained about not touching him. So I said, so what do you do when you get there? You don't fly like a ruler.
Right.
She said, yeah. And that, it is supposed, look at where it went from. She didn't understand. She felt very bad because she said, no, that he is supposed to enjoy her. I'm like, that's okay. But do you know that part of the act of him enjoying you and even enjoying you more is for you to do those things? And she's like, oh, that she never knew. And she thought that if she did any of those things, she would be seen as a bad person. And that is where society and our Africanness comes into play.
Right.
You understand? We've been programmed not to talk about so many things. And I find it very funny because when you get into marriage, they expect you to have sex with your husband and have a baby.
Right.
If you don't even know what to do, I mean, some people are lucky, they get it once and they are pregnant. Some people don't even, I know so many cases of bruised women. They are bruised. And when you talk to them and you ask them that, why are you getting bruised? Why is it like this? Is it because you are not wet enough? Is it because your pubic hair is getting into your vagina? Some people don't even know that part of hygiene.
Yeah.
They don't even know that. I said, look, even if you're not wet enough, do you know that there are things you can use? There are lubricants you can use. And they're looking at you as, I had a case of, she was still using the lubricant, but unfortunately the condom was actually a very harsh one. So she was getting bruised every time. And unfortunately for the guy, she didn't tell him. So it's not like you having a wound. You know how it is with women.
Yeah.
You do not want to be touched at that point in time. And he would, leave her maybe the first 2-3 days. By the 4th, 5th day, he's wondering, come on, what's wrong with you?
Right.
And then he sometimes he gets into more like a force. I'm going to have to do this. I want to do this. And of course, it's a sore. It gets worse. And I'm saying to her, but it's your husband. Why can't you just say to him, you know what? I'm bruised down there. We need to find a solution. What's causing it? Is it because maybe we need to have more foreplay for me to get more aroused? Or maybe we need to, you understand? But when you don't talk about it, how do both parties help themselves?
Right.
It's either two ways. You stay the way you are. If he is a very over-sexual person, he might start seeking gratification outside. And at the end of the day, which is like you stealing for once. Once you steal once and you're not caught, you want to go the second time. And that is how habit formation. It starts to go out.
Right.
She gets to know.
Right.
She gets hurt. But when you trace it all back to the beginning, at the end of the day, she caused it.
Right.
Lack of communication.
Wow, thank you so much for saying all of that, honestly. Even, like I said, even though it's going to be uncomfortable, it's going to be the uncomfortable truth that people need. Hopefully it gets into somebody's brain and things change in a lot of marriage dynamics. Now, I just wanted to talk about some common sex problems that a lot of therapists like you hear all the time. And I got this from an article, and I'll just read some of them and then ask you about the top 3 factors that actually affect sexual intimacy and satisfaction in marriage and how we can address them. So a lot of couples complain that there's no time for sex, or sex is boring, like it's more of like a task on a schedule, or, you know, basically after marriage, the sex life suddenly changes, or the women, you know, complain, my husband wants sex all the time, or I'm always tired, or we're in basically a sexless marriage, we lost our passion, our libidos are not in tune or in sync, and then one of the partners always have to complain, like, I am the one who always has to initiate, and then, or the other partner complains, like, you know, the other partner will not try the things that they want to do. So based on all of these things, like, what do you think the most common factors that you hear all the time, or the common problems that they always talk to you about all the time regarding sexual intimacy and satisfaction in marriage, and how can we basically address those?
I think one of the most common factors that I've always heard about is, you know, my husband wants it all the time. And for me, it's funny because, again, like I said, it has to do with the person's libido. You should know who you got married to in the first place. So, you know, if you've not tried something for a while, look, let's be quite honest with ourselves. The dynamics always change after marriage. Mm-hmm. It just always changes after marriage, with or without kids. It always changes because you've got more responsibility. When you're a young woman, all you do is go to work, come back home, put your feet up. You know, it's different. But right now in marriage, you are not just caring for yourself. You're caring for another human being. You know, just the husband. And then God help you, the kids come into play. Then the kids add to it. But what do I always say to people? You need to have that me time. You need to make out time and, you know, just do something special. You understand? I think many African women, especially Africans, we get carried away when the kids come. And that's just the truth. You know, we don't know how to prioritize. We just get carried away, you know. And I don't know I know in America it's not easy, but in Nigeria, half of us used to have mates. And I used to wonder, you have people already helping you. So why aren't you prioritizing the things you need to do? Right. I just think some of the times it's lack of prioritizing things. And then young women sometimes get carried away with. And that's what I used the word when I started, that we, in a subtle way, without us knowing, we take ourselves for granted in a very subtle way. And at times, it might be bad. But sometimes you need to shake that marriage. Right. Yeah. I always need a shake once in a while too. As good as I think I am, I need a shake once in a while to say, okay, you know what? You just can't lose yourself because you are married and just forget you're a lady. You need to have some part of you that you still hide and let this man think, okay, what's you know, not just like my mother will say, just flank there, like, you know, just don't have any decorum, nothing. You understand? So that's one problem. Another problem about they not spicing up their marriage is because they're not very innovative, and that's just the honest truth about it. I mean, if you make every day, like for me, a boyfriend, I mean. Look, okay, when it say in marriage, it has become monotonous. I always say to them, when you were dating, the mistake most young people make in marriages is that some of them go in because of the fun of, you know, now we can have sex without hiding. Right. You're going to get tired.
Yeah, that's true.
No, you're going to get tired because right now, I don't know if you've heard this proverb that it says the stolen fruit is very sweet. It is very sweet. It is. Because, you know, when they tell you there are 10 bananas on the table and you steal one, that one is going to be like, wow. Yeah. Then you take another one. But the moment they give you the whole tray of bananas that take, you're like, oh, okay. Because it's all yours. Yeah.
There's nothing exciting about it.
Exactly. So what do you do to spice up your marriage? I always say to people, you know, do things. Do something different. You know, go out there, buy new undies.
And lingerie.
Yeah, exactly. Have dinner dates, you know, Do, when you were not married, there were things you were doing that that okay, would make this guy, excited. And on the men's part, and that is the mistake many women make. Men are human beings too. They're not superheroes. They have their down times. They have their up times. They have their own doubts.
Yeah.
You understand? They have their own doubts. They have their own, like, maybe I'm not up to expectation. But because of that little ego that is in there, they don't talk about it. So sometimes a woman needs to, how will I put it? You need to like always kind of hail your man. Let him feel, like I always say to people, that anybody that knows me, I always say to people that after God is my husband.
Right.
After God is my husband,
Right.
I make him
even
feel,
before the children. That's rightfully so.
Yeah. No, the children come after him, because I always say to him, he's the handsome, is this, is that, just kind of massage his ego. And that's one of the things many people get wrong in marriage. You need to massage his ego once in a while. If not every time, because that is what men are all about. You need to, but nowadays you hear things like, oh, so he's going to massage my own ego. And I say to people that, you know what? I've learned over time that, especially with a long married and sexual relationship, there's this saying that a man would always be what a man would always be, which is true. But there's still some good men out there.
Right.
Not because people will tell you things like, oh, the wife must be doing some funny things. And I say to them sometimes, not all the time. Not all the time. Most of the time, no. It's not that she knows where to rub the man the right way.
Right.
She knows where to rub him the right way.
That's very true.
And every time, and that's one of the mistakes that people make, and I tell people that a lot, it doesn't have to be sexual as in having intercourse all the time. No. There are other ways to pleasure yourselves. It might even just be sitting down together, just holding hands and rubbing hands, and everybody feels as if they've had a marathon sex. Yeah. It might even just be just cuddling together and just being quiet. Yeah. Not even saying anything. Yeah. It's not every time it has to be physical sex that goes on.
That's really very true, because I wanted to add to that, because I feel like emotional connection should play a very major role in like sexual connection or intimacy. Like there has to be that emotional intimacy, which obviously should not involve sex, but just having that chemistry between one another. Exactly. It actually even makes the sexual part of it easier. And I feel like that's what a lot of marriages lack, especially when kids come in the picture and life gets very busy. A lot of couples, I'm not a therapist, but from books that I've read and from, stories that I've heard. And, I see a therapist. Well, my husband and I, we see therapists every now and then. And that's just for the health of our marriage as well. But for the most part, and from the books that we've read as well, there's really and I can relate that to the African community, because I've seen so many marriages, especially the marriages in the local communities. There's no form of romance. There's no form of emotional chemistry.
There's something called local romance.
Right. So it's like, you could tell like there's no form of emotional connection. They don't have that chemistry. It's more of a transactional relationship. And then of course you have the sex part of it, which for the most part is just to have kids. And then after that, it's like, a lot of women especially don't really see the need for casual sex. They just, they're too busy with the kids and with every other thing, and that's how you find the men going out there. And that's also vice versa. Sometimes, even though they say men are the more sexual beings, but I beg to differ with that, because I feel like women are actually more sexual, but
I agree with you on that.
Right. Women are actually very more sexual, but we just know we have that more self-control, I would say, that compared to men. Yeah. So I really wanted to, agree with you, because like we need to try to look for ways, non-sexual ways to, build up on that chemistry, which will eventually, it will be like a ripple effect. It will actually help with the sexual intimacy once we have that chemistry. Like you won't even need to do a lot to arouse your man, because there's already that connection, Connection. Yeah. So I just wanted to thank you on that. So let's try to talk about the historical aspects of sex, especially in marriage. Like, how will you explain that?
What do you mean by historical aspects?
So basically the historical aspects on the importance of sex in marriage, like especially in our African history, like, you know, like the outlook on how sex has progressed in marriage through the years.
Okay, I would say it's different now. People are getting more enlightened, but I'm going to be very frank now. I think people are hiding a lot under Christianity. And not doing the right things. You understand? You hear things. You hear people say things like, "Oh, I'm born again, so the mouth I'm going to use to praise God, I can't use it to give my husband a blowjob." And I'm like, "Girl, what are you talking about?"
Right?
I mean, it's just utter nonsense. It's nonsense because, again, I think one of the things that, okay, let's go back to pre our time. Okay, I know that our mothers were conditioned to be like a sexual object for their husbands.
Right.
And when they were having kids, you will notice that is where they were allowed, like the kings were allowed legally to have concubines. It wasn't seen as anything wrong. And they knew that the concubines were there to sleep with the men. Now, we've gone past that. We've gone to, I'm going to break it into 3 parts. That's the older part. My generation, our generation was brought up under the satisfaction of a little bit of feminism. You know, you add a little bit of rights, I mean, but not all the rights. But one of the major problems that our own generation had, and I always say, is that I think most of us were kind of, I used to say that marriage was a scam for most of us, because we went in with the fact that you just have to make it work.
Right, that's true.
You're sitting there in a loveless marriage, a sexless marriage. You would see somebody say something like, "Oh, my husband has not had sex with me for 5 years." Then what are you doing there? What's going on? I mean, you understand? But that is our own generation. We just sit down there. Now, the generation right now, like I said to people, are different. They're not taking any prisoners.
Right.
At all. It's like, it's either it's working for me or it's not working for me. And they are a little bit not too shy to discuss their sexual needs. They're not.
That's it for today. Thank you for listening to our show. If you want to participate in the show or find out more helpful resources, then visit www.livingafricanpodcast.com for more information, or email us at hello@livingafricanpodcast.com. Also, don't forget to connect with us on all social media platforms at Living African Podcast. You can also connect with Anyo directly on Facebook or Instagram at Anyo Fambard. Thanks again for listening, and let's not forget to be more understanding and nicer to one another.